You have these guys, like a Jeffrey Epstein type guy, who works with the elite of the elite clientele. It's all movie stars, big-time politicians, world leaders, scientists, Nobel Prize winners, and they all meet together and have fascinating conversations and cocktails, and there's beautiful girls everywhere. Of course. What a great idea.
Joe Rogan just figured out something disturbing about Diddy's case, and the web of alleged wrongdoing doesn't stop with him. It appears to stretch upward, straight toward the top of the power pyramid. And what Rogan discussed on his podcast may have been a serious mistake to say publicly. In this video, we're breaking down the entire power structure, starting with Diddy and moving all the way up to the names that rarely get mentioned. At the very top, you'll see who the real players are, why certain figures never get questioned no matter what, and why their names stay protected. By speaking on this openly, Joe Rogan may have crossed a line many people avoid. While Diddy sits in a prison cell waiting for trial, most believe the story ends with him being held accountable. But Rogan's recent podcast conversation revealed something far more unsettling. The entertainment mogul's network stretches well beyond headlines, reaching deep into power, money, and influence across the country. Before we break down who might really be pulling the strings, you have to understand what Sean Combs is accused of doing, because without this context, none of what comes next will fully connect. The details matter, and they explain why this situation keeps getting bigger instead of fading away.
Going to be in jail for the rest of his life. I think he's probably going to get
Think he's
hit up.
saying though?
I don't know. I don't even think it matters. I mean, a lot of it is.
But then it's just another Epstein. It's another Ghislaine Maxwell, where somebody gets indicted and nobody else indicted for trafficking kids to.
Right, to no one. Right. We're like, what is the next crazy thing that's going to explode in the news? Is Bill Clinton's going to have an OnlyFans? Like, what is going to happen? What is the next thing that's going to make us all go, what the f? Like, what the f is going on?
It's coming.
You know, how many guys were on video saying, ain't no party like a Diddy party? How many people like openly talked about being there?
LeBron?
Yeah, how about Ashton Kutcher? All these people. Like, you guys all went, you didn't see nothing?
Right now, Diddy is being held while his case moves through the system. He was arrested and later indicted on extremely serious federal charges, something that's already public knowledge. Prosecutors claim he used power, money, and influence to place people into harmful situations. Things reportedly escalated at private events often referred to as freak-offs, where guests allegedly had no idea they were being recorded. The idea that footage could later be used as leverage is where this starts feeling truly dark. More than 120 individuals have reportedly come forward with allegations. Some claims involve people who were underage at the time, which has made the case even more serious and sensitive. That part alone changed how many people viewed the situation. A recent documentary tied to 50 Cent brought renewed attention, putting pressure back on the story and forcing more eyes onto the details. But here's what really shook people: the idea that Diddy wasn't operating alone and wasn't even at the top of his setup. During a podcast discussion, Joe Rogan started connecting dots others avoided. When Jeffrey Epstein was mentioned, the parallels became hard to ignore. Someone even asked if Diddy might cooperate, and that's when the conversation shifted completely. He pointed out something that should honestly make everyone uncomfortable. There's a clear pattern people keep ignoring. Someone gets indicted for trafficking-related crimes, but somehow no one else ever goes down with them. Think about Jeffrey Epstein. Official records say he was trafficking, but to who? No names. Then there's Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted for trafficking. Yet again, no recipients listed. Does that actually make sense to anyone? Because it doesn't sit right with most people paying attention. The pattern feels obvious. The people at the very top always seem to walk away untouched. It's like watching the same story replay over and over, while the biggest players never even get questioned. That's when Joe Rogan started naming well-known figures who openly talked about attending Diddy's parties years ago. LeBron James, Ashton Kutcher, and others publicly joked about those moments in interviews. Those old "ain't no party like a Diddy party" clips suddenly feel different now. Rogan asked a blunt question. You were all there and nobody saw anything? The silence that followed raised eyebrows. To many listeners, that silence suggested awareness, avoidance, or something people don't want to explain. There didn't seem to be a comfortable middle ground. Then Rogan shifted the focus higher. If Diddy was running a personal empire, Lucian Grange was described as the real power above it all. As CEO of Universal Music Group, the parent company tied to major labels Diddy worked with, his influence is massive. Things escalated when a lawsuit mentioned Grange by name, arguing that major labels provide the structure that allows powerful figures to operate. The filings suggested these companies aren't just about music, but protection, silence, and leverage. And according to the documents, the parties were not a secret. The lawsuit claims he sponsored the events and attended them multiple times at Diddy's Los Angeles home. According to the filings, these gatherings allegedly involved paid workers and individuals who should never have been placed in those environments.
These words would come out my mouth, but Candace Owens is onto something, and that did not feel comfortable at all. So Candace says the reason mainstream news is not picking up this lawsuit, is not paying attention to Diddy at all, is because of this man right here, Lucian Grandage. He is one of the most powerful men in Hollywood and music. And he been up in Diddy's room. So this man right here is Sir Lucian Charles Grandage. He's been the CEO of Universal Music Group since 2010, so you know he done seen some shit. So I had to go to the damn documents. I had to see if this man was actually named, and he is. As you can see, it says Lucian Charles Grandage, and it also says Universal Music Group. On top of that, it says Ethiopia. I cannot fuck up her last name. I refuse to. But she was also a big person in Universal Music Group. And then Christina Coramham, Lord forgive. But she was like Diddy's second hand.
Let that sink in for a moment. The documents argue that leadership figures either knew or should have known that people were being put at risk. One allegation points to drinks being tampered with, including bottles connected to Diddy's own alcohol brands, De Leon Tequila and Ciroc, which raised serious red flags. Commentator Candace Owens publicly questioned why mainstream media stayed silent on these claims. She argued that Lucian Grange holds enormous influence in both music and entertainment, shaping what stories gain attention and which ones disappear. The lawsuit names Grange directly, along with Ethiopia Habtemariam and Christina Coram, both tied to Universal Music Group. According to the filings, these executives were allegedly aware of concerning behavior but failed to intervene. The argument is simple. Major label leadership controls massive amounts of money, and that money often decides which issues get addressed and which ones get protected. That explains why this story hasn't dominated coverage on major networks. Power controls the narrative. When people talk about Diddy's inner circle, one name always surfaces: Jay-Z. Their relationship goes far beyond casual friendship. Diddy once said only two people could call him by his real name: Sean, his mother, and Jay-Z. No one else.
One person.
Oh, go on.
And I call him Sean. That's Jay-Z. We call each other Sean.
Okay.
Yeah. Nobody else could call me Sean.
He's the only person who's Sean approved.
There's not a single person that
outside
should be,
of family.
That should be outside of my mother.
Okay,
That should be calling me. Yeah, they should be calling me Sean.
Now let's talk about Jaguar Wright. If you don't know who she is, she's known for saying the quiet parts out loud. No fear, no filter. She sat down with Piers Morgan and made explosive claims involving Jay-Z and Diddy. But here's the part that raised eyebrows. That full episode didn't just fade away, it practically vanished. Almost instantly buried, nearly impossible to find afterward. If there was nothing sensitive there, why would it disappear so fast? During that interview, Wright raised a question people have whispered about for years. How does Jay-Z sit across from Gayle King on national television and never once get asked about long-standing rumors or deep industry connections? The silence around those topics has always stood out. Wright didn't hold back. She described both men in harsh terms, accusing them of using influence to dominate the industry for decades. That sparked another question people couldn't ignore. Why would Jay-Z's high-profile personal attorney suddenly become connected to Diddy's legal situation? Was it coincidence, professional overlap, or something more complicated happening behind closed doors? Jay-Z has never publicly addressed these claims. And in today's climate, silence doesn't always come across as neutral. It feels deliberate. Joe Rogan often talks about this dynamic. Powerful figures rarely handle problems themselves. They hire elite legal teams whose job is to make issues disappear. That leads to names most people never hear, like Alan Grubman. He represents some of the biggest stars in the world, including Bruce Springsteen. These attorneys connect the entire industry, operating quietly, enforcing NDAs that can keep people silent for decades. They sit above everyone else because they control information. And in this world, information is the real currency of power. If powerful people decide your story never gets told, then it simply disappears. That idea comes up often when Joe Rogan speaks with former intelligence professionals like Mike Baker. The same comparison keeps surfacing. Diddy's alleged private parties and Jeffrey Epstein's operation follow a disturbingly similar pattern. The theory isn't that Diddy was some mastermind who invented everything on his own. The discussion suggests something different, that he may have acted as a facilitator, someone placed into position to handle a specific role. If recordings were being made, as prosecutors allege, the real question becomes who those recordings were meant for, who benefited from that kind of leverage. According to this theory, the people above him stay hidden. politicians, corporate executives, and global elites who never appear publicly, yet allegedly move quietly in the background. Diddy's parties are described as environments where powerful figures felt untouchable. There have also been claims about massive amounts of recorded material, not just connected to Diddy, but allegedly overlapping with Epstein-related evidence. If true, that points to a long-running blackmail system stretching across decades. During one conversation on Rogan's podcast, Elon Musk hinted at why some political figures receive overwhelming billionaire support. The suggestion was fear that if the wrong people gain power, hidden lists and connections could surface. Names like Reid Hoffman and Bill Gates have been mentioned in public speculation as figures who might be uneasy about what could come out.
Between Diddy and Epstein, it's good. There's probably several thousand hours of footage here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I should say, I think you voted for Biden.
I'd like to see a matchup of those, call it the top 100 puppet masters on the Epstein client list.
Do you think there's some overlap?
Strong overlap. Strong overlap.
When are we going to see that list, do you think?
I don't know.
Will that ever come out, do you think?
You know, I think part of why Kamala's getting so much support is that if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman's uncomfortable?
Yes. And Gates.
And Gates.
Yeah.
And I only ask that because you just look at them and you're like, that's a nervous person right there. I don't know. I mean, I assume you know them. Yeah.
Yes.
When Joe Rogan asked Elon Musk whether Reid Hoffman seemed nervous, Elon's response was just one word: yes.
You have these guys, like a Jeffrey Epstein type guy, who works with the elite of the elite clientele. It's all movie stars, big-time politicians, world leaders, scientists, Nobel Prize winners, and they all meet together and have fascinating conversations and cocktails, and there's beautiful girls everywhere. Of course. What a great idea.
Right.
And if you're naive and you don't understand honeypots.
Here's the quote from Maria Farmer, who was one of the accusers from what was inside the house in New York.
Okay, she said, there were monitors inside this cabinet. I looked on the cameras and I saw toilet, bed, toilet. She said, visibly spooked. Like, I'm never going to use the restroom here and I'm never going to sleep here. You know what I mean? It was very obvious that they were like monitoring private moments. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Maria Farmer was the one who worked at Epstein's office in New York, I think.
And this was the house, Jamie?
Yeah, I was looking up stuff on the house. That was like what they
I
found.
wonder if the
in
house still
too.
has fucking cameras in it somewhere that they haven't found yet.
They definitely, don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to scan the shit out of that house. You'd have to take the walls apart. There's probably listening devices inside the walls. Like, who knows? If this was like really an intelligence operation, yeah, they probably had that house fully wired.
That single answer landed heavy and made people stop and think. This is where the facilitator model comes into focus. Figures like Jeffrey Epstein and Diddy are described as creating protected environments, places where powerful people could gather away from public view. Celebrities, politicians, and executives who couldn't afford public mistakes suddenly had private spaces where rules felt different. But that's where the trap may have been set. These weren't just party locations, they were potential honeypots, spaces where influential people could be observed, recorded, and quietly controlled. Rogan framed it bluntly. Either this resembled some form of intelligence-style operation, or it was the work of someone calculating enough to compromise everyone in the room, phones away, promises of privacy, cameras everywhere. Rogan then asked the question that matters most. Was Diddy working for someone above him, or did he push things too far and lose control? During that same discussion, Musk brought up Jennifer Lopez, not politically, but in terms of credibility. His point cut deep. She was close to Diddy for years. They dated. They appeared together publicly. Parties, events, everything. So the uncomfortable question became unavoidable. Who did she warn? According to public record, no one. That silence forced people to confront something unsettling. If someone sat that close to the inner circle and never spoke up, what does that really mean? Either they truly didn't know, which many find hard to believe, or they knew something and chose silence. And if it was silence, was it fear, loyalty, self-protection, or protecting someone higher up the chain? These are the questions people should actually be asking. During federal raids on Diddy's homes, agents reportedly seized an enormous amount of recorded material. We're not talking about a handful of clips, but thousands of hours of footage. Commentators like Jaguar Wright and Gene Deal have discussed how that kind of footage allegedly functions, not just as blackmail, but as insurance, a quiet way to keep people in line without direct threats ever being spoken. There's also been speculation that some of these recordings are being moved discreetly, and that idea alone has caused visible anxiety among powerful names who fear what might surface. Megyn Kelly raised a point that caught many people off guard. Despite widely circulated video evidence showing Diddy involved in a physical altercation with Cassie Ventura, those specific images were not part of the charges announced publicly. That raised a difficult question. If something so visible isn't being addressed, what else is being shielded? The bigger questions keep stacking up. Who currently controls the recordings? What exactly is on them? And what would happen if large numbers of public figures were suddenly exposed in situations they never expected to become public? The most unsettling part may not be what's already known, but what remains unseen. When cameras are banned and secrets are traded, who actually controls the outcome? Who really holds the power behind the scenes? Another moment that caught attention came from 50 Cent's documentary. Some viewers noticed strategic editing choices, including imagery of Bishop T.D. Jakes appearing during discussions about Diddy's parties. Many online don't believe that was accidental. They think it was a message, subtle, but intentional. And when Bishop T.D. Jakes was later asked directly about these claims, his response only intensified the speculation. Instead of offering a clear denial, he said something very different. He told people to keep it moving. And then he said something that sent the internet into a frenzy. He suggested that even if something like those claims were true, repentance has the power to cover sin. Then he followed that up by saying he didn't even need to repent for this. To many listeners, that didn't sound like confidence or innocence. It sounded like deflection, like someone carefully stepping around a question instead of answering it directly. Jaguar Wright reacted immediately. She argued that if Bishop T.D. Jakes was anywhere near Diddy's party circles, there were only two possible reasons: money or access. She described these private gatherings as leverage zones, spaces where influence is created and later used against people when it's convenient. Former bodyguard Gene Deal raised his own concerns. He questioned why a respected religious leader would even be associated with events insiders have described as deeply questionable. He also hinted that he's heard long-standing whispers about recordings, tapes that might one day surface. And if that happens, he said, the conversation would shift completely. No more speculation, just evidence. Some independent researchers have started laying all of this out like a pyramid. And when you see it structured that way, it becomes unsettling. At the lower levels are major stars like Jay-Z and Beyonce, extremely powerful, but not necessarily at the top. Above them sit the gatekeepers, figures like Oprah Winfrey, Clive Davis, and major industry executives who control access to fame and money. And at the very top, one unnamed figure that some believe connects everything. The reach doesn't stop at music or Hollywood, it stretches into politics, technology, and even religion. Years ago, comedian Dave Chappelle tried to warn people about this exact system, but most didn't want to hear it. He explained that the entertainment industry isn't just about bad contracts or tough business. He described it as a trap, a structure built entirely around control. When people asked why he didn't just move his show to another network, his response was chilling. He said it would be like running from one plantation to another. Different master, same chains, and if someone as powerful and successful as Dave Chappelle felt completely boxed in, what does that say about everyone else? What does it say about artists and creators just trying to survive inside a machine designed to crush them? So after hearing all of this, from Diddy's alleged blackmail operation to the financial gatekeepers at Universal Music Group, from the Jay-Z connections to the parallels with Jeffrey Epstein, from Bishop T.D. Jakes to the entire power pyramid people are mapping out, what do you actually think is happening? Is this all just coincidence, or are we finally seeing cracks in something much bigger than any one person? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. If this video made you think, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it. Stay curious, stay questioning, and I'll see you in the next one.